Kayla, and I am back after being gone for a little while. I've just been pretty busy because I have a new job, which is what today's video is going to be about. So I'm going to be telling you guys about my new job, what I'm doing, my experience getting the job, and how my new employer has reacted to my blindness. I know jobs are a big topic in the blind community and in the disability community as a whole, because it can be a source of struggle for us. So I just want to share my experience in case that helps anyone else, and also just to catch you guys up on what's been going on in my life. So I'll just start off by telling you what my new job is so you don't have to be in suspense. So I am a therapist, which is really exciting to say because this is seriously my dream job. This is what I want to do. This is what I spent all of that time and hard work in school for, was working towards this exact moment. So I'm a therapist in a private group practice, which basically means kind of like a bunch of therapists in private practice together is the easiest way to explain that. And the type of clients I see, I get to kind of say I like to work with these types of clients and I like to work with these types of issues, and then they match those clients with me. So that's really cool that I kind of get to like pick my own type of specializations and clientele. So it's really awesome. And right now I'm doing all telehealth, so I'm still working from home, but I have the option, well, all therapists at the practice have the option to do telehealth in person or a mixture of both. So that's really awesome that if I ever decide that I do want to see clients in person, I can, but also I don't have to. So it's really great to have those options. So yeah, that's the gist of my job and what I'm doing. I'm just really excited. I'm loving it so far. Like I said, this is seriously my dream job. Like there's nowhere up to go from here. Like this is exactly what I'm doing. The only thing that would maybe be a step above this is if I was in private practice for myself, which right now my license doesn't even allow me to do. But I'm not sure if that's even something that I want to do. So like this is the top of the ladder. There's nowhere else for me to climb. This is where I want to be. So that is so awesome because it hasn't even been a year since I graduated with my master's degree. So to have my dream job and be where I want to be in less than a year is totally crazy to me. And I'm just very thankful and grateful, and yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about my experience getting this job. So first of all, you may be wondering, what happened to my old job? Which I will link my video for that, where I was talking about my job search experience and getting that job right out of grad school. But basically, I just wasn't loving that job. We were very slow. We didn't have a lot of clients, and I was bored out of my mind. And I also just didn't love my management. And I will say that it had nothing to do with my blindness. Yes, it was a little rocky starting out at that job because I had just like a lot of new systems to learn. And we just had some things to figure out as far as accommodations. But once everything got figured out, it was smooth sailing. Like it was never an issue. It was fine. So those weren't the problems. Like I had the same issues with management as all of my coworkers. So yeah, I wanted something different. So I was looking for jobs, and I felt like I was free to be picky and I could just apply for jobs that were really something that I was wanting to do. Like I didn't feel desperate. Like I just had to apply for everything out there. So it felt a lot more freeing than previous job searches, because I did feel like I had time to be picky. So I actually had a really good friend from grad school tell me about my new job. She had applied there and got offered the job. And when she was telling me about this place, I was like, man, that sounds really good. Like I need to get in somewhere like that. And she was like, well, I think they're still hiring. So I applied. I honestly didn't think that I was going to get an interview, but I did, obviously. And so I had a little bit of intel from my friend. I kind of knew what the interview process was, and I knew that they did 2 interviews. The first one with their office manager, and if they liked you, then they would schedule a second interview with the owner or the clinical director. So since I knew that there were going to be 2 interviews, hopefully, I was really struggling with deciding if I wanted to disclose my blindness in the first interview or in the second one. And I really went back and forth, but I ultimately decided to disclose in the first one because on the website for this practice, they really highlight that one of their values is diversity and inclusion. So I really liked that, and on the job posting itself, they kind of reiterate that value and said something along the lines that candidates who belong to marginalized communities would be strongly considered for employment. So I was thinking, maybe in this scenario, my blindness will be seen as an asset for the diversity that I bring to the table. So it felt like a safe space to disclose that. So I ultimately decided to disclose in the first interview, and I did it pretty early on in the interview. Probably one of the first few questions she asked me was, what made me decide to apply with their practice? So I started off by just listing a few other things that I really like about the practice, and then said something along the lines of, I really like how your practice values diversity and inclusivity because that's something that I'm really passionate about. I am really passionate about working with people with disabilities, and specifically how a person's disability can impact their mental health. And, I actually identify as being part of the disability community myself because I'm blind. I have very little functional vision left. And so I just really like that that's a value of yours because it's definitely a value of mine. Something along the lines of that, just very kind of casually, matter-of-factly, and she was just kind of like, oh yeah, I love that, thank you for sharing, and we went on with the rest of the interview. And then at the end of the interview, she asked me if I had any questions, and I said no, but I was wondering if you had any questions for me, since I told you earlier that I'm blind. Some people are curious about how that might impact my work, so if that's something that you want to discuss in more detail, I'm definitely open to doing that. And she said basically that she had forgotten that I told her that I was blind, which I thought was a really good sign because it just showed how open they actually were, that was not even a red flag. They weren't concerned about it at all. They were so unconcerned that they forgot. So I thought that was a good sign, but we did end up just talking a little more about it. I said that it had never been a problem with clients before, and that actually I see it as an asset because it helps me to better empathize with my clients who belong to other marginalized communities, and that I really think it helps to break down that perceived power differential where clients see it as oh, she has this thing that she deals with just like I have this thing that I deal with it, and I think it really helps to build that therapeutic bond. And again, she was like, I love that, and just seemed to respond really well to it. So I left the interview. Well, I guess I didn't leave the interview. It was on video, so I logged off of the interview, and I felt like it went really well. It was probably maybe the best I had ever felt about an interview. I just thought that it went really well, but I didn't want to get my hopes up because I have felt like interviews have gone well in the past, and they didn't work out. So I was kind of excited, but trying not to be too excited. So I want to pause here for a minute before I get into the rest of the story to just highlight how I went about disclosing my disability in this interview in a pretty different way than I usually do. I felt like I was very just matter of fact about it, and also spun it in a more positive way. Something that I did that is really different is I chose to say that sometimes people are curious about how that impacts my work, where I used to say sometimes people are concerned about how that impacts my work. And I just like the word curious a lot better than concerned, because it puts it more in a positive light, where if you use concerned, it kind of paints it in a more negative connotation, where maybe people are thinking like, oh, well, I wasn't concerned, but maybe I should be concerned, or like they feel like they're validated if they are concerned. So I really liked a lot better using the word curious. And I think before I've presented my disability like, some people are concerned, but like, I promise you don't have to be concerned. I can do this job, and this is how I can do it. And I feel like it was presented in a way that was very like, you're probably doubting me, but you really shouldn't, and here's why. And sometimes we have to do that because that's just the reality that we live in. But this time it was more of like, yeah, I'm disabled. If you're curious, we can talk about that. Here's how it's an asset. I didn't feel like I was like trying to convince them, which is what I usually feel like in job interviews. So it's just very different. But like I said, I think because of their strong values in diversity and inclusion, I felt like it was a safe space to present it in that kind of way. And I just really felt good about how I disclosed the disability in that interview. And if you're curious about my old way of disclosing and how I used to do that, I will link that video. Okay, so now back to the story. I got a second interview and I was really excited, but then I kind of had this internal struggle again of, do I bring up my blindness again in the second interview or not? I was like, well, probably the first person told them about it. I'm sure they know. But then I was like, well, if I don't bring it up, does it seem like I'm hiding it? If I do bring it up, does it seem like I'm like calling too much attention to it? This is what us disabled people going on job interviews have to deal with, as if they weren't stressful enough. So I didn't decide. I was like, we'll just see where it goes and if it comes up. So in the second interview, it did come up because she asked me kind of the same question of what made me want to apply with them. And so I gave the same answer as I did in the first one. And she also seemed very responsive to that. She even asked me about like kind of what accommodations I would need. And I said like, really, I just need the electronic health records system to be accessible through screen reader, and like, that's it. That's all I need. And then at the end of the interview, she offered me the job, which I was not expecting at all, because I knew from my friend that she did not get offered the job at the interview. It was like a few days later. So I was not expecting that. It really caught me off guard. I think I was in shock. I went upstairs after the interview was over and my husband was like, hey, how'd it go? And I said, I got the job, I think. Like, I felt so unsure about it. And I will get a little vulnerable here. I felt so unsure that after this happened, I was obsessively checking my email, waiting for them to say, never mind. Like, never mind. We thought about it and we actually, don't want you to come work for us. We don't want to hire a blind person. Or, oh, we looked into the EHR system and it's not accessible, so I guess this isn't going to work out. Or we didn't have as many openings as we thought, so, just never mind. And this is nothing that they did to make me think like this. I am just very insecure when it comes to jobs because I have been burnt pretty badly in the past. And I have had this happen before where I was offered a job at the end of a job interview and then was told later, never mind, that they had hired someone else. And so I just felt so insecure about it. I was really excited because I wanted this job so bad, but I felt like I couldn't be excited because I was scared. And I felt like I couldn't call and tell my family because I wasn't sure that it was real. So eventually that went away and it did start feeling more real and I felt more secure when I accepted it and I got like my schedule for training and stuff. But I was just had a lot of feelings going on before that, a lot of uncertainty and anxiety. So that's the story about how I got my dream job. And they have really been so great with my blindness. Everyone has responded very positively. I've really felt like very welcomed, very included. They've been very proactive in making sure I am accommodated. They asked me before I started training, like what would be helpful, what do I need, how can they make sure everything's accessible. They said like that they do screen sharing during training and how can they make that work for me and would it be better to do it one-on-one. Just very proactive, where I've been in spaces before where I felt like my disability was accepted, but not to this degree, where it was kind of like, oh, go do your thing. If you run into any problems, just let us know and then we'll figure it out. Whereas my current job was very much like, we want to make sure this works first. And it just really showed they were really thinking ahead about me and making sure that everything was good to go. They even asked me basically how I wanted to be introduced to the team and what would be helpful and like what was considered sharing too much. I said like, by all means, please tell everyone I'm blind. Like, I don't care. I think it's helpful for them to know. And they asked me if there was anything else that would be helpful. And I said that it would be really helpful if people could introduce themselves before speaking while I'm still learning everyone's voices. And they've been really great about that. And it was just kind of mind-blowing that I even got the opportunity to make that request, that they even, asked me what they could do to make everything more inclusive for me, and that I was, able to even make that request and that they've followed through on that. And just everyone has been so nice and welcoming, and like, I feel like this sounds super cheesy, but I feel like I'm at home. Like, it really does feel like a work family. And I also feel like I'm really valued, and even like valued for being blind, where in other workspaces, I felt like they were tolerant or maybe even accepting of my blindness. But here, I feel like I'm actually valued for that. Valued for the diversity and like the perspective and uniqueness that I bring to the table. And that's just a really good feeling. So overall, it's so great. I'm so happy. Sometimes it still doesn't feel real. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I hope you found this video interesting, maybe even helpful of like how I approach disclosing my disability. I hope maybe it gives you hope that one day you will land your dream job, and that maybe you can find a workplace that is so open to your disability like mine has been. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.